Connecticut is often celebrated as a symbol of affluence and academic excellence with its top-ranked schools and picturesque towns, but beneath this polished surface lies a more complex reality. Just a few miles apart, communities experience vastly different opportunities and outcomes. This paradox of wealth and inequity coexisting so closely sets the stage for our exploration. In this video, we'll uncover the historical roots, legal battles, and ongoing challenges that shape Connecticut's education system. Let's begin by understanding how this paradox came to be and why it matters for every student and family in the state. Truly grasp today's inequities, we need to look back at Connecticut's history. Yale University, founded in 1701, was established for the white elite, setting a precedent for exclusion and privilege. Over centuries, these early choices shaped who had access to quality education and who was left out. The legacy of these decisions still echoes today, influencing school demographics, resources, and opportunities. By understanding these historical roots, we can better see how the past continues to shape the present and why change is both necessary and challenging. The 1930s, federal redlining maps labeled minority neighborhoods as hazardous, effectively cutting them off from mortgages and investment. This practice didn't just shape housing, it created a geography of opportunity that persists today. Families in redlined areas faced limited access to quality schools, fewer resources, and diminished prospects for upward mobility. The lines drawn on those old maps still influence where children go to school and what opportunities they have. Understanding redlining helps us see how geography and policy intertwine to create lasting barriers. Connecticut's education landscape has been shaped by major court cases. In 1977, Horton v. Meskel declared education a constitutional right, challenging funding disparities. Later, Sheff v. O'Neill in 1996 addressed racial isolation in Hartford schools, pushing for more integrated classrooms. These lawsuits forced the state to confront deep-seated inequities and set legal precedents for future reform. While progress has been made, the journey toward true educational equity is ongoing, and these cases remain touchstones in the fight for fair schools. Education Cost Sharing (ECS) formula was introduced to equalize school funding by considering both town wealth and student needs. In theory, this should ensure every child receives adequate resources regardless of where they live. However, in practice, the formula has often fallen short. Political compromises and outdated calculations have left some districts underfunded, while others continue to thrive. Understanding how the ECS formula works and where it fails is key to addressing the persistent gaps in Connecticut's schools. Despite reforms, significant barriers to equity remain. Zoning laws and reliance on property taxes continue to shape who can live where and which schools get the most funding. Wealthy towns often maintain low tax rates and high property values, attracting more resources for their schools. Meanwhile, less affluent communities struggle to keep up, perpetuating cycles of disadvantage. These structural challenges make it difficult to close the opportunity gap, even with well-intentioned policies in place. Effects of educational inequity extend far beyond academics. Black and Latino students in Connecticut are suspended or expelled at 2 to 3 times the rate of their white peers. These disparities contribute to the so-called school-prison pipeline, affecting students' futures and entire communities. Addressing these issues requires more than just funding. It demands a holistic approach that considers discipline, mental health, and support systems for all students. Legal and political solutions stalled. Connecticut's communities took matters into their own hands. Grassroots coalitions formed, linking education to broader issues like housing, broadband access, and mental health. These groups recognize that student success depends on more than just what happens in the classroom. By working together, they've pushed for policies that address the full spectrum of needs, showing the power of local action in driving change. Connecticut knows what needs to be done to fulfill its promise of equal opportunity. Advocates call for raising the foundation funding amount, adding weights for poverty and English language learners, and connecting housing policy to school funding. These reforms aim to ensure that every child, regardless of background or zip code, has access to high-quality education. The path forward is clear, but it requires sustained commitment and collaboration from all stakeholders. Aracel Vasquez captured the ongoing nature of this work. History doesn't close, it revises page by page, classroom by classroom. Connecticut's story is still being written, shaped by the actions of students, educators, and communities every day. The fight for equity is not over, but each step forward brings us closer to a more just and inclusive education system. As we reflect on the past and look to the future, we're reminded that real change happens together, one classroom at a time. Connecticut's reputation as a wealthy, high-achieving state often overshadows the stark contrasts within its borders. While some towns boast world-class resources, others struggle with underfunded schools and limited opportunities. This dual identity is at the heart of the Connecticut paradox, reminding us that statistics alone can't capture the lived experiences of students and families. By looking closer, we see the urgent need for systemic change. Legacy of exclusion in Connecticut's education system is long and deeply rooted. Early institutions like Yale set the tone for who belonged and who didn't, creating barriers that persisted for generations. These patterns of privilege and exclusion have shaped not just schools, but entire communities. Recognizing this legacy is the first step toward building a more inclusive future for all students. Redlining wasn't just about denying loans, it was about mapping inequality onto neighborhoods. These maps determined which areas would receive investment and which would be left behind. The consequences are still visible today, as school quality and resources often align with the boundaries drawn nearly a century ago. Addressing these disparities means confronting the legacy of these maps and the policies that enforce them. Landmark court cases forced Connecticut to reckon with its educational inequities. Horton v. Meskel and Chef v. O'Neill didn't just change laws, they changed lives. These decisions highlighted the importance of legal advocacy and pushing for systemic reform. While not all problems were solved, these cases set important precedents and inspired ongoing efforts to create fairer schools. Despite the intentions behind the ECS formula, many districts still don't receive the funding they need. Political negotiations and outdated data have left some schools struggling to provide basic services. The result is a patchwork of opportunity, where a child's education depends heavily on their zip code. Fixing the funding formula is essential for closing these gaps and ensuring every student has a fair shot. Structural inequities like zoning laws and property tax reliance continue to shape Connecticut's educational landscape. These policies determine who can afford to live in certain towns and, by extension, which schools their children can attend. The result is a system where privilege is often inherited, and breaking the cycle requires more than just policy tweaks. It demands a fundamental rethinking of how we fund and organize schools. Educational inequity affects every aspect of a student's life, not just their grades. Disparities in discipline, mental health support, and extracurricular opportunities all contribute to unequal outcomes. Addressing these issues requires a comprehensive approach that goes beyond test scores, focusing on the whole child and the community around them. Grassroots organizations have become a driving force for change in Connecticut. By connecting education to broader issues like housing and health, these groups have built powerful coalitions that advocate for students and families. Their work shows that real progress often starts at the community level, with people coming together to demand better for their children. Reform advocates have outlined a clear blueprint for change: increase foundational funding, add weights for students in poverty and English learners, and integrate housing policy with school funding. These steps are designed to address the root causes of inequity and create a more level playing field for all students. Implementing these reforms will require political will and community support. Connecticut's story is far from over. Every day, students, educators, and advocates are writing the next chapter in the fight for educational equity. Their efforts remind us that progress is possible, but it requires persistence and collaboration. By learning from the past and committing to action, Connecticut can move closer to fulfilling its promise for every child. Connecticut Paradox challenges us to look beyond surface-level success and confront the deep inequities that persist. It's a call to action for policymakers, educators, families, and communities to work together for lasting change. By acknowledging the past, understanding the present, and building a better future, we can ensure that every child in Connecticut has the opportunity to thrive.